Good evening everybody and welcome to the opening round of the PS4 F1 2017 Esports Championship. Today we are here at the Shanghai International Circuit. I'm Ali Kidd and joining me to take you through all of tonight's proceedings is Alan Cavey.
Everybody, nice to be here today.
Yeah, and we are about to load into qualifying for the first time on PS4, remember? So we have... Actually, the biggest difference on PS4, we have 3 leagues, Alan, and that is going to make a huge difference compared to what we saw on Xbox and PC the last 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, however, speaking about difference, I do feel like one comparison, all these races bunch together, fantastic finishes. We've seen 2 fantastic races. I saw you tweet about it and speak about tweeting. Don't forget to use a hashtag F1 Esports if you have anything about this race, but speaking about that, fantastic finishes, fantastic racing. Obviously, this race has a lot coming towards it. So we start off qualifying with 12 minutes. That's something the new game has. They've shortened down the qualifying. I personally do like that about the new game. Squeezes everything together, makes things go quicker, in my opinion. What's your take on that?
It is like a real-life Q3 session. Even though we don't run full qualifying, it does really pile the pressure on. As Lee Mather mentioned on Twitter, I think that was what he alluded to as the reason for changing it from 18 minutes, was the fact that it really does pile on the pressure, pile the pressure on the drivers to really produce. They have 2 runs max, really, in a normal qualifying session, so it's going to be really, really tough mentally for them. And another thing to mention is none of them will ever have felt pressure like this in any league racing situation. Having 3 spots in the London semi-finals of the F1 Esports Championship up for grabs is a huge prize, and none of them will ever have had anything like it before.
Yes, obviously this championship is something very, very new to Formula 1 and just gamers in general that race on Formula 1. Obviously the new game, obviously F1 2017 came out a couple of weeks ago, maybe last month. And already lots of drivers getting used to it. I know there's some people that just got it, but obviously the championship is just about to get underway. And I think many drivers are very, very excited. I remember last 2 races we got fantastic ratings and got a lot of people watching the race, a lot of support. And obviously with this last race of the week to finish it out, I feel like there's a lot of hype around this and there is a good reason to have it. So many drivers getting out on track, like we mentioned. Qualifying is a lot shorter, so a lot of drivers trying to get out on track as soon as possible. So many drivers will be starting their lap within the next couple of minutes.
And that could make it very interesting, actually, trying to jostle for position, trying to make sure that you have a decent track position, no cars in front of you, and plenty of clear air. There is nothing worse than having a car in front of you to distract you in your eye line. Speaking as a driver from experience, that is incredibly frustrating. So hopefully all these drivers can get themselves into a bit of space and put in clean qualifying laps. As we're on board here with F1 Kimi 7 of F1 Italian, I mentioned that there were 3 leagues competing in this championship. We have drivers from AOR, from Race Stars, from F1 Italian, and also 1 Team Redline driver. So the class of this field is something else, and that's where it's a little bit different to Xbox and PC. It's not just AOR drivers or just AOR and Team Redline. We have a whole mix of people, and a lot of them will never have raced each other before, some of which are actually some of the fastest drivers on this console. I think F1 Italian Magic is someone I've seen mentioned a number of times in the past. He has a huge amount of pace, and all of these F1 Italians have a ridiculous amount of speed. The competition in their league is just incredible, just as it is in AOR. The drivers we have from AOR, we have Alex and Aresi. Aresi is actually the reigning champion. Alex has finished 2nd, 3rd and 2nd in his last 3 AOR seasons, I believe. So a lot of pedigree here, a lot of pedigree.
A lot of statistics get spread out on the board with many of these drivers coming from different leagues, but something I'll point out, you can quote me on this, in my opinion, this is going to be one of the greatest league races of the year, maybe of all time. You have all fastest drivers from each individual leagues coming together to put a lot of pressure on the shoulders of these drivers, knowing that there's only 3 spots up for grabs, and not only the London and the Abu Dhabi finals that are going to happen later on this year. But it's fantastic what F1 Codemasters and a lot of the leagues were able to do, come together, create this fantastic championship. I mean, we're just starting qualifying, but I can feel it right now. This is going to be something magnificent, to say the least, as it looks like B. Cole crosses the line with the fastest lap, a 1 at 32. 5, I believe, as that just disappeared on my screen, but we already have 8 minutes remaining, and many drivers trying to put in valid laps very early in the session.
I think on this run we're going to see everyone trying to put in banker laps so they can go really full tilt on the final run in this qualifying session. Beacott with a 32.9, I believe it was, to open this qualifying session. Pole from the last two nights, we've seen identical 32 flats. So I imagine we will see something fairly close to that tonight, I would imagine. As H Racing Green goes fastest on a 1 minute 32.8. Harry was GP2 champion in Season 12, moved up to F1 for Season 13, had mixed success as Ollie D, the reigning GP2 champion from Season 13, puts in the fastest lap, and everyone is still in that high 32 mark. I imagine that is going to drop considerably by the time we get to the end of this session, as Nico Fiore of F1 Italian just bangs in another 32.6 to put himself top of the leaderboards so far. And Alex, wow, 32.3 out of nowhere so early on in the session. That is an incredibly impressive time, and he will be feeling very, very confident after that. If you put a good banker lap in, you can just sort of relax a little bit more, and then when you go onto that final run, you can just throw everything at it, nothing to lose. Know that if you make a mistake, you already have a good backup lined up, and I think, Alan, that is going to be an incredibly hard time to beat.
Speaking about times, it's going to be very, very tough to nail this circuit, as we're going to go over some of the track facts. Obviously, there's 16 corners, 2 DRS zones, a length in kilometers, I believe, is 5.4, miles is 3.3. There's one heavy braking zone that I will point out. Right now, I'm on board with Alberto heading down to the hairpin. He's not on a flying lap, but you see this hairpin, turn number 14, that's going to be the most heaviest braking zone that these drivers will face in today's Grand Prix. It's going to be very, very tough. There are a couple other ones around this track, but I feel like lots of moves can be made in turn 14. As we saw yesterday's PC race, there was a move made on the backstretch on the final lap of this Grand Prix, and that, I believe, gave Wycombs a victory. So, again, props to him on that, and I'm not sure if we'll see the same. We might, as a lot of these drivers coming in, going back out again. We have 5.5 minutes remaining, as we are just moments away finishing this thing, believe it or not.
This qualifying session is really starting to fly by. We've already had almost 7 minutes gone already, and the grid is starting to shape up. The timer in the right-hand corner doesn't seem to be entirely accurate, so we'll just have to go probably off the race director, as Nico Fiore is into the pits, currently sat in P4 in this session. And I think, has Alex been bumped down to P3? Or is... as I didn't see a fastest lap be put in just yet, as I think Marco Ganu of F1 Italian is actually on a qualifying lap at the moment, a second lap on the soft tyres. That is very, very interesting. He's already done a lap on these tyres, I believe, so to go for another one is pretty confident, and I think that probably means he is intending to start on the soft compound of tyres by the time he comes to the end of this lap and then goes back round for doing an in lap. I think he's going to be struggling to get another run in this session as he goes a little bit deep into that double chicane almost, as we go through this long right-hander onto the back straight. That's an incredibly difficult traction zone. He manages it pretty nicely, and then onto this longest back straight in Formula 1, almost a kilometre long, I believe it is. He activates the DRS and then into the turn 14 hairpin. As KV mentioned, it's probably one of the heaviest braking zones on this entire calendar. How does Marco Ganu take it? It seems pretty nice. Down into first gear momentarily before short shifting up into second. As he comes to the end of his lap, what is it going to be? Is he going to finish the lap, or is he going to come into the pits? He does go to finish the lap, round the final corner and up to the line. Where is it going to be for Marco? It is... as he crossed the line, it is still P19. So is that another invalidation? I think he had an invalidated lap earlier in the session, I believe.
Also, something that concerns me, not only do we have 4 minutes left, if you look at your screen, you can see something red flashing on your screen at the bottom right. That is his fuel. He is really, really low on fuel. I'm not sure if he has one more lap to make it around on a competitive lap. I'm not even sure if he's trying or not. But Marco, definitely under pressure to not only set a lap. I don't think he'll be able to set a lap like many other drivers are maybe suffering with fuel if they've been out there for so long. And there are a couple drivers who haven't even set laps yet, and we only have 3.5 minutes remaining. I can see a bunch of drivers in the pits, just like Tim in the Renault and Aresi, I believe, in the Toro Rosso. Many drivers exiting the pits trying to set their final lap of qualifying.
And with only 3 minutes left of this session, it's almost do or die for pretty much everybody in this session. Aresi currently sat in P9 in that Toro Rosso. birillodog is just leaving the pits, as is, oh, that was a huge amount of cars coming out of the pits. This is going to get very, very messy on the outlap. They cannot hold each other up too much, otherwise they're going to be struggling to make it round for another lap, you would imagine. Jay Thorne in that Mercedes, currently sat in P7, one of the fastest drivers in AOR on his day. He can nail a pole lap like nobody else. Thinking back to season 13, he did an incredible qualifying lap at Monza to get pole by over half a second. To get pole by that margin in AOR F1 is unheard of. That was an incredible performance, and he'll be looking to pull something similar to that out of the bag today. He's currently sat in the lower reaches of the top 10. I'm sure he'll be looking to improve on that. Ollie D is actually just ahead of him. Ollie was, as I mentioned, GP2 champion. He actually went fastest earlier on in this session. Let's go on board with Nico. I'm not sure whether he is on a lap. I don't think he is, as he's short shifting an awful lot. Let's go on board with who I think is the current provisional pole man, Alex, if I can just find him on the spectator thing. He's actually down in P6 apparently. Again, I'm not sure if he's on a lap. He appears to be short shifting a lot, but that could just be his style. And no, there is no timing screen on the dash, so I believe this is not a flying lap. There's a car weaving in front of him as well, and he is weaving with DRS open. That is a ballsy move. Oh dear, nearly losing on the straight. Weaving with DRS open is not something I would really want to do on the straight, or something I would recommend even.
Not gonna lie, I think he's probably warming up his tires and he forgot he had DRS, or he just wants the cameras on him. Either one. He is starting to come to a flying lap with 1:36 remaining. He crosses the line, and he will begin his flying lap. He's going to reach up into 8th gear, and here we go. One of them, I consider this a blind corner. Once you go from turn 1 to 2, and then you head down from turn 2 to 3, and it's going to shift lanes to the right side all the way to the left side. I have seen some lockups here before. As you can see, the left side lock up and off the corner. He may lose the back end, as he did lose the back end. He goes up to 5th gear, now right on the rumble strip, and now you head in, and I consider this a hairpin. The next hairpin you see, turn number 6, is it looks like Italian Ben sets a fastest lap with just 1 minute remaining. Another lockup from Alex, and another fastest lap from Alberto, a 1:32.2. So many drivers putting in fast laps towards the end of this qualifying session.
Can Alex do the same through this middle sector? Oh, there's a little bit of a lockup on the inside front. Can he still get the car turned in? It's looked like a fairly tidy lap so far. Is it fast enough to regain provisional pole? He has a 32.2 to beat. There is a car in front of him that might put him off slightly into this chicane, braking just after the 100-meter board. It is Jemzoh of Race Stars just ahead of him, but this lap has looked pretty decent so far for Alex. This is one of the hardest corners on the entire track. Has he got it right? He has, and onto this back straight. Is he going to pick up a distant toe from that Ferrari in front of him? I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. Might get in the way of his braking marker for this final hairpin. You have so much time to think about this braking zone. Can Alex nail it? Braking just before the 100-meter board. Looks pretty decent. Oh, he's missed the apex, has he? No, he's picked it up very nicely late in the corner. Up to the final corner. What is it going to be for Alex? Can he nail this final corner of the lap? The checkered flag is not out just yet, but around the final corner, Alex up to the line. What is it going to be? Is it pole? It is. It's a 32.1 for Alex in the Ferrari, who takes provisional pole. The checkered flag is now at Nico Fiore, does a 32.0 just after, and Alex has held provisional pole for only a matter of seconds. Let's go on board with Itaven, I think, who's on the soft tyres. He's coming around the final corner. What is it going to be for him? What position are we going to see the Haas driver get up to? I am not sure that the timing screen has updated correctly there. Let's go on board with Tyrell Manu Rodri, who is into the pits. I am not sure what positions are being shown at the moment. I'll check the race director in a moment, but Jemzoh, the car we saw just ahead of Alex on his flying lap, is also coming through this middle sector here.
Cut out.
And into this hairpin. Again, he's going through this difficult corner. Ollie D just ahead of him. And will he pick up some slipstream, Alan? I'm not sure. It looks like he's... No, actually, Ollie lets him through. But what can Jemzoh do? The checker flag is out in this qualifying session. Where is it going to be for Jemzoh of Race Stars? Can he match his Ferrari teammate, in inverted commas? Obviously, there aren't really any teams in this competition. It is mainly just for the individual. And Jemzoh looks fairly tidy into the final hairpin and up to the final corner. Is it going to be tidy enough from Jemzoh? We've already seen a Ferrari take that very nicely today. How is Jemzoh going to take it? It looks fairly tidy to me. Up to the line. The checker flag is out for Jemzoh, and we will see his position in a few moments' time, Alan.
It's a very interesting qualifying session, to say the least. A lot of these drivers putting in late runs, like you mentioned earlier, banker laps in the beginning, and then setting more competitive laps for the end of qualifying. Actually, Alberto has retired because qualifying is now over. We do have a minute left for these drivers to finish up, and it looks like Alex is actually going to come into the pits. I'm not sure if there's anyone else out on the circuit, but yeah, very interesting qualifying. And if, you know, the qualifying was good, I always like to say if the qualifying is good, then the race is probably going to be even better, as it looks like I just saw a Red Bull exit the pits. Really sure.
That is a little bit strange, but I think it is pretty cool to see that we've had almost identical pole times across all 3 platforms. That is very nice to see that all 3 platforms are just as competitive as each other. Maybe not as many well-known names in PC and PS4, but they both produced some very, very close and fast qualifying sessions. I have no doubt that the race is going to be any different, as we're just waiting on a few drivers to retire. And TRL Manu Rodri appears to be out on track. 21 seconds only remaining of this qualifying session though, so we will hopefully be seeing the final qualifying grid rundown within the next few seconds. So as... yeah, you carry.
So just a couple seconds left. I mean, sort of odd to see them letting drivers out. And that was when qualifying was over. However, when qualifying is over, this will be the grid order, as it looks like to be. It is still loading. Now, again, a very interesting qualifying session, to say the least. I enjoyed it. And again, since qualifying is over, tweet hashtag F1 Esports. So the poll stands like this: Nico Fury on the pole, 2nd Alex, 3rd Jemzoh, 4th Alberto, 5th Jthorn, 6th Aresi, 7th F1 Italian Magic, 8th JustLoOller, 9th birillodog, and 10th Shellay. 11th is Ali D, 12th is F1 Kimi, 13th is Big C, 14th is H Racing Green, 15th is Flores, 16th is B Colt, 17th is Tim Fiddier, 18th is TRL Manuri, I butchered the name, I'm so sorry, 19th is ITA Ven, and round out the field is going to be Marco and the Force India.
That is an incredible qualifying session. The top 10 covered by just 0.4 of a second. That is incredibly close. One mistake on that quali lap could have dropped you almost 10 positions, which is just something else and shows you just how competitive this environment really is, as we are preparing to go racing for the Chinese Grand Prix. We have 20 cars on the grid, all of whom are incredibly fast. Hopefully they'll put on as much of a show as they did in the qualifying session we have just seen. It's going to be Nico Fiore starting on the pole, with Alex less than 1/10 of a second behind him in 2nd place. And as the drivers are loading the setups, what would be the thoughts going through your head at the moment, Alan, if you were on the grid?
I would go a little conservative. I mean, it doesn't sound like the best option to go when you're going to be in one of the biggest races of your life. But then again, going a little too aggressive, next thing you know, your tire pops off and you're out of this race. So obviously, these drivers have a lot of emotions going through their head. But my option is just wait. Once you want to pass people, I'd wait after the first 2 sectors. Wait till sector 3 when you're maybe on the back straight's a lot safer. And maybe wait till lap 2 or 3. But turn 1, lap 1 isn't the best choice. But we'll see, as we're moments away from the Chinese Grand Prix.
We are indeed. You cannot win the race on lap 1, but we are ready to go racing in Shanghai. We have 5 red lights for the Chinese Grand Prix. It is lights out and away we go. On board with the Red Bull of Nico Fiore into turn 1 as everybody files off the line. It's a clean getaway from pretty much everybody. Nico covers the inside. Alex is under attack from the 2nd. Ferrari into turn 1. Nico already has a gap. I think Alex has managed to maintain P2 for now. Everybody has made it through the snail section cleanly as far as I can see. Alex has maintained P2. Nico Fiore has maintained the lead of this race. Jemzoh is in 3rd as the 2 Mercedes are going side by side. Alberto and Jthorn. Jthorn is going to be on the inside. There appears to be a little bit of contact between them. Jthorn seems like he's got P5 now as Alberto moves up into P4. Aresi is sitting just behind them in P6, and it appears everybody has made it through the first few corners cleanly, with Nico Fiore still in the lead.
I wouldn't say cleanly. I am looking back. There are a couple cars off the pace. I'm looking at the Renault of Tim, and also in the first corner, it looked like the Haas ended up spinning. I'm not exactly sure, but JustLoOller in 19th is also off the pace. Not exactly sure what happened with those drivers, but it seems to be everyone in single file. I can see a battle brewing up as JustLoOller has left the session, and now around the outside for 16th, looks like Ali D trying to make the move of a Haas driver. can't get the move done. I think he's going to wait, like we said, down the straight. I think this is going to be obviously a very, very good overtaking spot as we're down the straight, every car single file. A lot of slipstream will be made. Obviously, Rich Mix is not available to lap number 3, but multiple drivers trying to make passes, and it looks like the front are pretty clean. Obviously, not many incidents happening up front already, but it seems to be after lap 1. We've gone away pretty lucky, to say the least.
Everybody, the top 5, or the whole lead train really seems to be still in one piece as Alex and Nico Fiore appear to be breaking away slightly. Nico sets the fastest lap of the race. The big question here is, can Alex stay within DRS of that Red Bull? That is going to be crucial for his chances in this race. If he can just sit behind, save his tyres and work his strategy, I think Alex is going to be in with a very strong chance of challenging the F1 Italian for the win in this race, as Jemzoh is 1.6 seconds now behind the lead. I imagine he would still be picking up DRS from Alex just in front of him, as the two Mercedes are then next in 4th and 5th with Alberto and Jaythorn. Jaythorn was a bit of a fan favourite, I think, from the comments made before the race. Aresi, the reigning AOR champion, is just behind in P6, and this train is still very much together as F1 Italian Magic is down in P7 in that Williams, and Shellay's actually made his way up into P8, having started in P10, and this train still seems to be very much intact actually all the way down the field. There are so many cars here together, as Big C is now up in P10 and H Racing Green just behind him in 11th. Let's go and take a look back at the front of the race, on board with Alex as he's about to tackle this back straight for the second time in this race. The gap at the front has extended to over 0.8 of a second, and while we have a little bit of a break in the action, Alan, it looks very overcast. And we did see rain in the Xbox race, so maybe that's something that we could look forward to for the remainder of this race, possibly?
Yes, rain can definitely happen at the Shanghai circuit. We've seen it before, and obviously with the last 2 races happening, weather playing a huge factor in both races, as it looks like I'll leave in the back end for 3rd, as fastest lap for Nico Fury. So it looks like he is pushing as hard as possible in the lead. He's trying to create a gap. You know, I'm just trying to create a gap. Obviously, that's what you want to do at the beginning of the Grand Prix. But like you said, the rain can play a huge factor. Obviously, we're not the drivers. We can't talk to Jeff, so we don't know what's going on. But from what we can see right now, it is cloudy and nothing seems to be progressing. So we'll have to wait and see if the weather will play a factor in today's Grand Prix.
And that would make it very, very interesting as Flores has left the session. So we've had 2 drivers now leaving the session, which is not a great sign for the remainder of the race. But as it stands, it is still Nico Fiore. I think it's Fiore in the lead of the race, with Alex currently in 2nd place, with Jemzoh in 3rd, then the 2 Mercedes of Alberto and Jaythorn in 4th and 5th. Aresi is down in 6th place, still very much in this lead train though, with F1 Italian Magic a little way behind them in 7th. Next is Shellay in the 2nd, Toro Rosso, then F1 Kimi and Big C rounding out the top 10. Let's see if Alex has still managed to stay within a second, and he has. He's dropped the gap now to 0.7 of a second, so I think he is just about able to stay with Nico for now, and DRS is enabled, and Alex will be picking that up down the back straight, and I mentioned that could be crucial to his chances in this race. And knowing Alex very well, having raced him for several seasons now, this kind of situation is exactly what he will want. He has a very fast driver in front of him, and Alex has more than enough pace to just sit behind, and with the DRS as well, he can just kind of stay there, conserve his tyres and work his clearly masterminded strategy to perfection as he sets the fastest lap of the race, and that gap now is reduced down to 0.6 seconds, Alan.
Yeah, obviously the gap is starting to diminish between 1st and 2nd, but obviously the lead will obviously shorten up, and eventually I can see them battling for the lead. I wouldn't say within the next 3 or 4 laps. I could probably say within the next 5 or 6 laps they could probably be wheel to wheel with each other. Obviously the gap, like we said, has diminished, but also I mentioned a couple minutes ago, you said there might be rain. A lot of people telling me in the comments that are in the lobby telling me that there will be heavy rain towards the end of this race, and that'll be overcast in the middle. So obviously right now it's overcast, and actually I think I just jinxed it, because right now I see rain falling on our screens, and right now on the hood there is rain falling on the circuit. So rain will play a factor for today's Grand Prix.
That is going to be huge. It is lap 4 only of the Chinese Grand Prix, and we already have rain in this race. I cannot remember exactly when it started raining in the Xbox race that we saw on Tuesday, but what I do remember is that the crossover period took forever for the intermediates to become faster than the dry tyres, and we had several drivers splitting the strategy, some going for dries, some going for inters at the first stop, and I wouldn't be surprised if we had that happen again here. But for now, DRS is still enabled, and Alex is still well within touching distance of that Red Bull just in front of him. But that little bit of rain is going to make it pretty difficult to drive on these slick compound tyres. And something else on this game, the weather system is a lot more unpredictable, so it's not like on F1 2016 when the DRS would be disabled and you knew exactly when to pit for inters and Jeff would tell you exactly when. You have to work it out for yourself, really. You have to do it by feel, as it's getting very busy in the background. All of these cars have DRS, as Jthorn has actually moved up into third place. I didn't quite catch that one. He's moved ahead of that other Mercedes, and this train is starting to really build. They are also starting to drop back from the leader, but I think this battle for P3 could get pretty feisty. They don't seem to have quite the pace of P1, but I think that battle in itself could be one to watch for the rest of this race.
Yes, definitely. It looks like the top two are just pulling away. And again, a lot of the corners that we were talking about with heavy braking, lots of drivers locking up. I mean, it's starting to affect drivers for fifth place, I can see. Aresi making a lunge to the inside of Jemzoh. They're still wheel to wheel as we head through the S. The long swooping left-hander back to the right-hander. Aresi's going to try and hang it around the outside. This time we'll have the inside. And right after this, shift down to fifth gear, fourth gear. He's have to shift down one more gear as he clears Jemzoh for the fifth position. So he is definitely one to look out for, making very aggressive attempts at passing people. And he's done a superb job of it so far. So as it looks like right now, you can, because of that, it has enabled the two silver arrows to pull away, and it looks like the fifth train is just a sitting duck or a conductor of a train, and it looks like Aresi has a lot of on his plate.
Oh, Ferrari's round! Jemzoh is gone!
But
he's dropped from second place in this race, and he's now round at that long right-hander. He has spun it in these conditions, and if you needed any proof as to how difficult it was to drive on a wet track with dry tyres, you just got it there. Jemzoh has dropped from 6th to 14th. He was at one point running third in this race, just behind Alex, and he's now way down the order, as I can see a Renault in the foreground making a move down the inside of that Sauber, which I think is Beacott. Harry and Brandon are going side by side into the final corner. I think Beacott has got the move done just for P10, and this train is starting to split up now, as I think that is Aresi making another move, or is it trying to defend from Magic? That's someone else actually. That is Shellay under pressure from Big C, is it? And Shelley's lost a position. Big C is up in 6th place. That is not something I thought I would be saying. Oh, he's 9th actually. These two Williams are confusing me here, as Magic is the one in 6th and Big C is down in 9th at the back of this train. He is still very much in contention for that 6th place though. And let's go back on board, check with the leaders. Oh, they're both going sideways. That nearly looked very costly for both of them. Alex has still stayed within 0.6 of a second of Nico, and if I was to pick one weakness of Alex as a driver, it would definitely be his driving in the wet conditions. We saw several times throughout season 12 and 13 that he was not the best when the rain started coming down. So hopefully that's a bit different on this game. He has rectified that problem and he can challenge for the victory today.
Yes, I'm looking back in the pack. I mean, like we said earlier, the weather can affect these drivers, and it already, like last lap, you saw Jemzoh spin, and I'm going to tell you this, the weather and the conditions are only going to get worse, so it is going to be the inevitable for these drivers to make mistakes. I've seen already many drivers make mistakes, not spinning out. I mean, besides Jemzoh, I've seen many drivers either running wide or locking up, or just in battles, as it looks like, ooh, a glitch by Shellay. But down the straight now, DRS is actually still enabled because the track is still suitable, believe it or not, for these slicks. As if you put on intermediates, you'd actually be sliding all over the place. But only 6 laps through, and it looks like conditions are definitely making a huge factor in this Grand Prix, as it's a huge stack up in the hairpin, making contact multiple times for 8th, 9th place. It looks like Big C was in the middle of that. And it looks like we said, DRS is still available, so eventually I feel like these drivers can make a move as we head into the first corner, moving up the grid. I really feel like Shelley's feeling a little vulnerable against F1 Kimi, as he has a lot on his plate towards turn 1, as Magic runs it a little bit wide, as it looks like Shelley goes defensive to the inside, makes contact with Magic, as there's still a single file from 2 to 3, locking up to the inside, as it looks like many moves are still yet to be done in this Grand Prix.
And this train for P6 now is really starting to build up, as the two Mercedes have disappeared off up the road. Jthorn is actually down to P5, and Alberto is the one up into P3 now. So those two have swapped positions once again. Alex has now dropped 2.2 seconds behind the leader. He is struggling so much. in these conditions, and I'm afraid we have seen this before on multiple occasions in Season 12. He is struggling for pace in the wet, and he's dropping right back into the clutches of those two Mercedes cars. Can he rescue it with the strategy, though? Who is going to get the call right to go for the intermediate tyres? Are we going to see dries again before the end of the race, or is it going to go to full wets? Who knows? At this point, we have no idea what the weather forecast is, but that train behind, I think it is F1 Italian Magic, is starting to look pretty mighty, as Aresi now into P5 is going to be looking at Jemzoh, is it? He looks a little bit too far back. As we go...
Obviously, DRS is still available for these drivers. Lap number 7. You did mention about the switchover point from the slicks to either the wets or the intermediates. Obviously, you also asked a question: when will we finish this race? Will it either be on the wet conditions or the dry conditions? All I've heard is people in the comments saying it's going to be as wet. It looks like Jemzoh is going to dive into the pit. Same with Aresi. I'm not sure if anyone else ahead has pitted, but it looks like to be the Silver Arrow, Toro Rosso, and a Williams behind. I'm not sure if that's Big C. No, it's not. So it has to be, I think it's Magic.
Yes, it is, and none of the leaders, interestingly, have come into the pits. So none of the top 3, Alberto, Alex, or Nico, came into the pits on that lap, as Magic is actually getting a front wing change. That is going to be pretty costly for him, and a lot of these drivers are into the pits for intermediate tyres. We haven't seen DRS be disabled yet, but it does appear to be getting a lot wetter out there, as... whereas Jemzoh, everybody's going to have clear out. Let's go on board with Thorn as he comes through turn 1. Is there any grip? Yeah, it looks on the edge to me. He seems to be struggling with a lot of understeer. I don't know how that looks to you lot, but to me, I don't think it's quite intermediates just yet. I would have stayed out one more lap, but we'll see what happens. Is anybody, or are any of the front runners, most importantly, going to react in this race?
Yes, I'm still spectating Jemzoh, and he made a massive lockup in turn 6. So that is one clue that the intermediates are not yet ready or suitable for this circuit. I am watching him lose the back end in turn 7. That is, and losing the back end again. Jemzoh struggling on the circuit, and I was watching. I did see a lot of understeer, but I think now either in the entrance of the corner you will see understeer, off the exit you'll see oversteer. Obviously, the drivers suffering from the ones who actually pitted on the intermediates. I'm not sure if Jeff got the call, but then again, DRS is still actually available, believe it or not. So really, my prediction is once they say DRS isn't available, obviously it's not suitable. But battle for 6th place, F1 Kimi and Ali D, they're going to go wheel to wheel. They are a car length apart from each other's side pod, but diving down to the inside, I think it was a double lockup there, as it looked like Kimi ran wide. They all ran wide, as Bicol ran wide as well in the hairpin. And that is going to be a major stack up, as it looks like in the grass, F1 Kimi, he held on to that one. And I think all of these drivers except F1 Kimi are going to dive into the pits. Kimi's going to stay out for one more lap. I'm not sure what these driver strategies will be doing, but down into the pits, many locking up, and we will see where they come out compared to the people who pitted last lap.
As all of the leaders pitted on that lap as well, and Nico is going to come out behind TRL Manu Rodri, who is still on those dry tyres, I believe. Yes, he is, and I think he should be fairly easy work for the other Red Bull just behind him. This is going to be a great comparison, a great visual comparison for us to see whether the intermediates are now faster than the dry tyres, as both of the Red Bulls seem to be struggling for traction on the exit. And yeah, you can just see Nico has breezed past TRL Manu Rodri into turn 6, and I think now it is time for the intermediate tyre. So where did Alex come out in all of that? He is just ahead of Alberto, so Alberto gained a huge amount through those pit stops, and Thorn has actually dropped back a little bit, and he will have one lap older tyres than the rest of the guys in front of him, which could be a disadvantage later on in this race, considering that it was probably a little bit too dry as well for the intermediates. Oh, and they're both catching this Red Bull in a very awkward place. Oh, it's going to get very messy with Alberto trying to go around the outside. That could have been very, very nasty, and TRL Manu Rodri on those soft tyres even is going to be really, really struggling in these conditions.
I'm not exactly sure why he didn't pit, and now around the outside, Jemzoh is going to pass him on the intermediates, of course. Now that is a preferred tire, believe it or not. I still believe we still have DRS, but it's still not really going to play a factor. But the drivers who stayed out and stayed on the slicks, aka TRL Manurid, is going to be really under pressure from everyone else, not only losing positions from staying out, he's going to lose even more positions from going down the straight and pitting, I assume, this lap. And if not, something's going to go wrong. And speaking of going wrong, F1 Kimi ran wide in the hairpin, falling all the way back down. It'll be wheel to wheel with Jemzoh, and he's going to let Jemzoh by. So obviously there may have been some contact or just locked up because he has not pitted for tires as well. So he's another one of those drivers who have not pitted, but I think I thought he would have planned his braking point really early not to lock up, but obviously really hard to do that in the slicks, showing how hard the wet conditions are on the slicks for sure.
Let us know who you think is going to be winning this race come the end using the hashtag F1 Esports on Twitter. We will be very interested to read what you are making of this race so far. But Alex, at the moment, is under quite a lot of pressure from Alberto out of turn one. Alberto seems to be a little bit quicker than the Ferrari in front of him in these conditions. As I mentioned, Alex is not famed for his driving in wet weather conditions, and it appears to be very much the same on this game as well. So I think, unless anything goes horribly wrong, I think Nico's in the box seat to win this race for now. Obviously, we don't know what the weather forecast is for the rest of the race, which is going to be pretty interesting, actually. As I mentioned, we don't know whether it's going back to dry, it's going to go to wets, or what else is going to happen. It's been overcast this entire race. It's been overcast for the other two races as well, and the weather has been pretty unpredictable. So at the moment, who knows what is going to happen. But as we stand, it is Nico Fiore in the lead of this race from Alex in P2. 4 seconds back now. He's bleeding several tenths per lap. Alberto in P3 with Jay Thorne of AOR in P4 a little way back from these guys. Aresi in P5 in a bit of a world of his own in that Toro Rosso at the moment. Big C is up in P6, and he is actually up in P6 now. My eyes are not deceiving me. A man who I did not think would be anywhere near the top 6 at the start of this race. I'm sure many others probably thought the same, is well up there, and time again, whatever you think of the guy, he always seems to produce under pressure, which is quite remarkable. Regardless of pace, regardless of what happens in the race, he always manages to get a result, as Marco has retired from the race. I'm not sure how that happened or why that would have happened, but I don't think he was running particularly high in the order anyway, as several drivers who I think have messed up the strategy are a little way back in this race. As I'm on board with Flores at the moment, he appears to be struggling quite a lot at the moment.
Yes, a lot of these drivers trying to cope with the conditions. That looks like Marco left the session, but anyway, lap 11 now. I'm still looking at second and third place. A lot of these drivers suffering with the conditions. Now that obviously everyone is going to be on intermediates, they're not going to suffer as much as it was just a couple laps ago. But if you want to see a battle, I'd keep the camera on Alex and Alberto. Obviously, like you said, Alex not as good as oh, a car pulling off to the side. That is going to be Marco. Never mind. But like we mentioned, if you want to see a battle, keep your eye on Alberto. As we said, Alex is not as good as he is on the dries here, and obviously he's going to be feeling very vulnerable to Alberto all over the rear. It's going to be just obviously moments away from a pass going to be happening. And to answer another question, you asked if it was going to rain even more or just clear up towards the end. I'm going to leave it to the guys in the chat. If you think it's going to keep on raining, put it down in the chat. If not, but I honestly feel like it's going to get even worse because I see clouds all around the circuit. I don't see this track improving. Even if it stops raining, it's going to take a couple laps or so at least for this for these conditions to improve on the circuit so they can switch back to slicks. But down the straight, it really feels like Alex is pulling away. So that is it for second place, and Alex maintaining the position for now, but we will see what happens.
Something to note, actually, so far in this race, the gap between Alberto and the leader Nico has actually been decreasing, despite the fact Alberto is stuck behind Alex, who we don't... Oh, Alberto's in the pits. Is he? Yeah, Alberto's in the pits. He must have a drive-through, surely.
He goes in the pits as well.
Oh,
he goes in the pits as well.
Full wets. I think people are going for full wets. Wow, the rain has really increased.
I called it.
Nico has pitted for full wets, and you did indeed call it. Nico has gone for the full wet tyres from the lead of the race, and it does appear to be a monsoon at the moment here in Shanghai, but that is a huge call for Nico. He's the first person into the pits for the full wet tyres. He's followed in by Alberto, and how is this going to work? Is Alex going to be caught out? Is he going to be left to dry on the intermediates out on the track? How is that going to work out? Are the wets going to be faster than the intermediate tyres that stay on board with Nico for a little while as he chases down Shellay? Again, we'll be able to see a direct comparison between the two different tyre compounds, the full wets versus the intermediates, and at the moment there doesn't seem to be a huge difference. Nico doesn't seem to be struggling that much at all, but nor is he pulling in the gap to Shellay either, which is actually really quite interesting. So maybe there isn't much to call at all between these two different tyres at the moment.
Yes, definitely. I'm seeing a lot of the conditions just getting worse and worse as I'm looking on board with Nico. Like you were saying, it is just downpouring. I think this is the worst we'll ever see at this Grand Prix today. He is in P7 and he's not really gaining on Shellay, the car ahead, which is the Toro Rosso. So obviously, I really feel like next lap, Nico will be, or not Nico, Alex will be pitting as he is on the back straight now. He's still leading this thing. And like we mentioned earlier, there was around a 2-3 second gap between these two. And like you said, Alex was gaining. However, if he does pit this lap, we will see where they come out and where they are compared as off the hairpin, losing the back end massively. As now, I think he is going to pit. If not, I'm not sure what's going to happen. He's going to stay out for one more lap, at least one more lap, as he's going to cross the line for lap number 13. Alex still leads it, as I do believe the car behind of Jthorn has dove it into the pit, so he is obviously going to switch from the intermediates to the wets. I'm not sure if this is going to cost Alex even more than it did in the beginning, but right now, Alex still holds a lead, though I'm not sure for how much longer.
And you could see even down the main straight how much spray was being kicked up behind that Ferrari. He was kicking up a tsunami behind him as he was going full speed, and I don't think the intermediates are the right tyre to be on at the moment, as we'll watch him into the turn 6 hairpin almost. And oh, that's a big lockup, it's a big slide as well. He manages to make the apex, but I'm not sure that these intermediates are the right tyres to be on. Let's go on board with Nico and see what the gap is. The gap is 20 seconds. And interestingly enough, he hasn't closed in on Shellay at all. Really, looking at that gap in front, maybe Shellay and Alex are onto something here, and Big C as well, maybe, and Aresi as well. Maybe these intermediates are the right tyres to be on. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of difference at the moment between the two different compounds. That gap between Nico and Shellay has stayed exactly the same as when Nico came out of the pits. So that seems pretty interesting to me. And maybe, oh, he's off the track, is he? He is. It's a mistake from Nico. We haven't seen many so far this race, but maybe cracks are starting to show.
Yeah, so we were talking about the rain, and like I'm surprised that you pointed out on Aresi and Alex that they are gaining some time, but also in the corners they're suffering so much. Every time I look on board with Aresi in turn 6, I saw him lock up heavily, and also in turn 1 he ran so wide on lap 13, and that's why Big C got so close to him. However, I'm not exactly sure, as Alex is going to stay out for one more lap at least, and I keep saying that because obviously he feels like the conditions are suitable for the intermediates, but then again, he could be waiting for when the rain lightens and goes to light rain again, if that happens. So obviously, smart call, and a huge gamble for the Ferrari, as we are halfway through this Grand Prix, and obviously it hasn't even started.
Aresi has also dived into the pits. He made a last-minute decision to go into the pits for the full wet tyres, and I cannot believe I'm about to say this. Big C is running in second place in the opening round of the F1 2017 Esports Championship. And is this the right call, though? That is the big dilemma at the moment. Is it inters or is it full wets? Nobody knows. He's currently 12 seconds behind the leader, Alex. But we don't know whether he's going to have to make another stop for the full wet tyres. Maybe he knows something that we don't. Maybe it's going to go back to intermediates. Although the gap between Nico and Alex has decreased marginally. And Nico has finally managed to work his way past Shellay, which is something to note. So maybe now is the crossover point. So I don't think Alex will have lost any time, but I'm not sure whether he will have gained any either.
Yes, I think the most notable point now is probably Jeff is screaming in Alex's ear to pit, but at the same time, I feel like the most crucial part will be not only I do feel like Alex did gain some time there with that 2-3 second gap. He was behind on Nico, but also, like we saw, it took Nico a while to actually pass Shellay, and now that he did, I think he knows now it's time to pit, and obviously it's going to be very close, in my opinion, between Alex and Nico, as lap number 14 now. I'm not exactly sure when Alex is going to pit. I'm either going to say this lap or next lap. We will see as he approaches turn 16, and he's going to stay out for another lap. A little surprising, to say the least.
That is a big call. He has really committed to this strategy. This has got to work. He has stayed out for so many laps that he has no choice but to carry on doing what he's doing if he wants to stand any chance of making this strategy work, as Big C stays out as well. But we just saw a huge downpour of rain on the camera. I am pretty certain now that it is full wet conditions, as Shellay has been distanced by Nico, and that is a huge amount of spray on the start-finish straight, and the gap between Nico and the leader Alex has gone down from 20 to 17 seconds. That would indicate very much that it is definitely time for the full wet tyres, as Jemzoh has worked his way past Shellay, and I imagine that Alberto will be doing the same fairly shortly. So Alberto and Nico were the first two cars to pit for the wets, and Alberto's actually ended up behind Jemzoh as Alberto makes his way past Shellay fairly easily into turn 6, as Shellay does not fight it too much. I think that was sensible from the Toro Rosso. He knows that is not his battle in this race. But Big C and Alex are still staying out. They've got to pit this lap, surely, unless they've got something in mind that they're trying to take these Inters to the end of the race. Inters are going to be coming back after this full wet period. Who knows? I have no idea what is going to be happening for the remainder of this race. Let us know your thoughts using the hashtag F1 Esports on Twitter. The gap between Nico and the leader is down to 15 seconds. Nico is flying in this race.
Yeah, I think now, obviously, it is going to be the switchover point. We keep saying it every lap, and we keep putting the two eyeballs on Alex of when he's going to pit, but I honestly feel like Nico is on fire right now. As you can see, going down to the inside, Big C, under pressure. Obviously, that is a huge gap. I don't think, really, he should be worried about any slipstream. It is pouring rain, like you said, monsoon conditions, and another lap that Alex stays out. And I think every lap, we are going to keep eyes on Alex in turn 16 to figure out when he is going to pit, if he pits. That's a question, if he pits.
If he pits is also another part of that question. Alex has still stayed out. He is definitely trying something different. I think he's realised he is not going to win this race on pure pace. In these conditions, he does not have the raw speed to compete with Nico in that Red Bull. So fair play to him for trying something different. He is really risking everything at this point. He could have just followed in Nico, the leader at the time, and settled for second place. But no, he is going all out for this victory. He is trying something incredible, really. None of us thought this would be the strategy to go with. He has done something different to everybody else in this field, pretty much, apart from Big C, who I think, Big C has just been passed by Nico, who is now going to be charging down on Alex, and he's got to hope that whatever strategy he is employing in this race is going to pay off fairly swiftly, because that gap has decreased by 8 seconds in the last 2 laps. It is so wet out on track. How Alex is surviving, just skating around on those intermediate tyres, is a mystery to me. He's going to be so slow. You can see on his screen the amount of rain pouring down on that Ferrari. It must be so hard to keep it on the track, let alone drive fast.
Yes, definitely. I am looking at the gap, and when you were talking, we talked about second place. Speaking of second place, Nico has found his way into P number 2, passing Big C on the intermediate. So obviously now, like we said, the switchover point is the inevitable, as some of these drivers are still out on track. I mean, some of these drivers you haven't even mentioned, are still in the intermediates. I was looking at Tim in the run. I'm not sure if he's already pitted. No, he's still in the intermediates. He's outside the points. A couple laps ago, he was in 7th, and he got demoted many positions. Not by mistakes, just by pace, because he was on the intermediates, and that let Ali D and Shellay's actually still in the intermediates, believe it or not. And I think Ali D's on the full wet, so he's going to be under attack from Ali D. Shellay's going to try and go a little defensive, but obviously pouring rain, better tire compound, as he's going to go to the inside, trying to defend for the position, as moving back into position number 10, and it looks like Ali D was easily going to make that pass. Lap 16 out of 28 for him. Ali D making another position look easy.
Ollie D moving up into P9, then ahead of Shellay, who is still out on those intermediate tyres. Again, he is committed to this strategy, just like Alex and Big C. And is it going to pay off? That is the big question. The gap between Nico and Alex is down to under 10 seconds now. We have just over 10 laps remaining in this Chinese Grand Prix, and still nobody knows how this strategy is going to play out. And unless my eyes are deceiving me, it appears that the rain's got a little bit lighter. I think it's not going to be too long before we're seeing intermediates again. So maybe, just maybe, this has been a strategic masterclass from Alex. It's a bit too early to call at the moment, but still, who knows going into the remaining just over 10 laps of this Grand Prix.
Yes, I'm looking at it, and definitely the spray has decreased by so much down the straight. And obviously, I can see a lot of blue in the sky forming up that wasn't there a couple minutes ago. Allows it looks like a position for third place is in for the taking. Still looks like the full wets are still going to be demanding here against Big C. It's going to be the 2 silver arrows all over Big C. Alberto and Jathan are trying to work together to get by Big C. However, they're going to be single file, and the conductor of this train will be Big C down the straight. Obviously, no DRS, but obviously he's going to have the slipstream. He's going to try and find a way around, as like we said, the rain is starting to decrease, but the full wet of Jthorn is trying to get ahead of Big C. And obviously, once he makes this move, he should know that this period of the full wet dominance isn't going to last that much longer. So he did get by there for the 3rd position, and now Big C is going to be under threat from Alberto, the 2nd Mercedes driver that is in line there, as he's going to dive to the pits. I'm not sure if he's switching for the intermediates. We will see what Alberto does as he's going to dive into the pits, and it's just moments away, and we will see what tire compound he puts on. Most likely going to be the Grindwall Intermediates as he enters, and most likely they are going to be the Intermediates. So I think many drivers realizing they either screwed up, or it's just that they need to put on those Intermediates, because now those tires are going to be the ones faster out of all other tires available in this Grand Prix.
I cannot...
In the full wet, he's under pressure from the Mercedes man of Alberto as he dives it down to the inside, as now it looks like the Intermediates are going to be on full attack mode as he just got back into the points after pitting. So obviously he realized what it needs to do to be faster. It's going to the intermediate tires. So right now, Alberto moving up to the 10th position. I think many other drivers, knowing deja vu, they've made many mistakes so far, and this is one of them, as the drivers who stayed out on the intermediates, losing the back end, is Shellay for 8th position. But like you said earlier, I think this is going to be the switchover point now. The gap between Nico Fury and Alex was 12 seconds. Now it's decreased by half into 6 seconds, believe it or not, with Nico being on the full wets. So I don't know what's going to happen. Both drivers still staying out. But as it looks like Alex is going to dive into the pits for the intermediate tires, with now just 10 laps to go in this Grand Prix. Obviously, I feel like he's going to put on the intermediates and run it till the end.
I think Alex has worked this strategy absolutely perfectly. What we've seen so far has been a masterclass in how to drive a race in wet weather conditions. He has pulled out those intermediate tyres for an incredible amount of laps, and he's now in P5. He is the net leader of this race still. We assume that Nico has another stop to make. Alex will probably get an undercut at this point, and the gap is likely to be in excess of 6 seconds. So if Alex can hold this together, he might have just turned this around and pull off one of the most incredible victories I have ever seen on an F1 game. He has come out in a little bit of traffic though. F1 Italian Magic in 4th place and H Racing Green in 3rd. Just ahead of him. The gap between Alex and Nico is something to keep an eye on. It is currently 17 seconds, and the pit delta is a lot more than that. We are going to have to keep an eye on that time, as we think it is going to be dropping throughout this lap. We're also going to have to keep an eye on when Nico pits. But through this middle sector, Alex is going to have so much more grip than the 2 cars in front of him. F1 Italian Magic just ahead of him, and that Renault as well. As Alex goes for a bit of a dive, does he? These 2 cars are really concertinaing up as we go through this middle sector. Alex trying to look for a move anywhere, but there's just no space. Is he going to go for the inside here? He is down the inside of F1 Italian Magic. This could be a crucial move for Alex. Down the inside, he is still side by side with Magic. He's going to have to try and go around the outside of the next part of the corner. He cannot make that one stick. He's going to have to wait for the turn 14 hairpin as they come through this huge right-hander. Alex is still on the outside. Surely not. Can he make it stick down the straight? He's going to have a huge amount of time to think about this braking zone into the next hairpin. He's also picking up slipstream from H Racing Green, and he will get P4 into the turn 14 hairpin. What a move from Alex.
Yes, definitely. Again, we keep saying intermediates are the tires to be on right now, and Magic just found himself being a sitting duck off the swooping right-hander and around the outside. A very impressive move, as it looks like H Racing Green and Magic both figure that out once he got past. So obviously they're going to dive it down into the pits with just 9 laps to go as they dive it into the pits. And it looks to be most 99%. They'll probably put on the intermediates after seeing what just happened.
Yes, I'm sure they will all be going for the intermediate tyres. Now, as Big C, having not pitted, he is still on that first set of intermediate tyres, is still in 2nd place in this race. And we think Nico might have another stop to make, unless he's trying to do an Alex and just pull out these tyres for as long as possible. And maybe he's just going to hope that these tyres hold up as long as they can, and that gap will just kind of stay the same. I mean, thinking about it, Alex has got to pull a 17-second gap in the remaining few laps of this Grand Prix. It has dropped to 16.1 now due to that first sector alone, which is huge. That is a massive, massive drop, 9/10 in one sector. But is it going to be enough? It probably needs to be a little more than that if Alex wants to catch up by the end of this race. He's definitely going to be all over Big C. As Big C is closing in on Nico, he's lost 2 seconds in that sector. And if Nico pits, Big C is going to have the lead of this race, which will be quite a sight to see in that Williams, representing AOR. Just to put that into perspective, he's finished 9th and 10th in the AOR seasons on F1 2016. He was largely irrelevant in the title fights, and somehow he's found himself up here on the biggest stage of all in the F1 2017 Esports Championship. He has produced under pressure like no one has ever seen before, and I imagine Nico has stayed out. He is going for this call. He has pulled an incredible decision, and surely he's lost even more time to Big C in that sector. Surely that is the wrong decision for Nico, but I think it's just a compilation of errors here as Big C takes 1.5 seconds out of the leader in one sector alone.
Yes, definitely the gap is diminishing from first to second. I think now with just only 8 laps to go, I'm not sure if Nico either wants to finish it out because he knows he's losing so much time. It's just the inevitable of when he'll finally pit. I'm not exactly sure when he'll pit, but I feel like within these next 3 laps he'll pit, or he'll try and finish the race on these full wets, as obviously I would say his biggest threat, the net leader of Alex. I still feel like Alex still has a long way to come to either catching up to these guys. I mean, the gap from Big C to Alex, if I can do my math correctly, that was going to be around 8 seconds. And obviously, Alex, you saw earlier, was faster than Big C on the same exact tires. So obviously, we're just going to wait and see with 8 laps to go. And it looks like this Grand Prix is starting to heat up.
It really, really is. The gap now between Big C and Nico is down to 4 seconds. And is Alex going to be closing fast enough on Big C to catch him by the end of this race? That is the big question here. Is he going to be fast enough to close that gap? What is it at the moment? Alex is 9.4 seconds behind the leader. Big C is only 2 seconds. So that gap is over 7 seconds with only 7 or so laps remaining in this Grand Prix. And look how close Big C is to Nico. That gap is almost non-existent. That is come down a huge amount in the last few sectors alone. And surely Nico's got to pit, or is he just going to stick it out with this strategy? He's almost got no other chance at this point. He's just got to stay with this strategy. He's messed it up. He's committed to this full wet strategy now. He cannot pit, and he's got to just stay with it. And surely Big C is going to be taking the lead of the Chinese Grand Prix as we start lap 22. He's putting Nico under all kinds of pressure into turn 1. Can Big C do anything? He moves to the inside into the snail section. Is he going to get anything done? He's going to have so much more grip than the Red Bull on his outside, and I cannot believe what I am saying. Big C takes the lead of the Chinese Grand Prix in the F1 2017 Esports Series. What is going on in this race? And it's not all over yet. Alex is closing incredibly fast behind, and he is going to have the bit between his teeth trying to catch up to these 2 leaders. He can smell the victory. Surely at this point he can see the Red Bull in front of him. He can probably just about catch sight of this Williams. It is all hotting up in the last few laps here.
Yes, definitely. The gap is closing for sure between Nico and it seems to be Alex. Though I honestly do feel like as drifting around the corner, Nico tried to find creative interpretations of going around turn 7 and 8. Though right now still in second under pressure from Alex. And it seems to be that within the next 2 laps, Alex will be flying by the Red Bull and trying to go for the lead of this race. But I do point out, I think there is some lap traffic for Big C. It is a ghosted car, so never mind. But like I was saying, I do feel like Alex can challenge for this Grand Prix at the end. Obviously, lap 22 out of 28. The gap has gone down by a second within this last lap, and we have more than 5 laps to go. If he doesn't take too long to pass Nico, I do feel like he can challenge Big C as losing the back, and he has to let off the throttle as he's going to be all over Nico. He's going to be wheel to wheel eventually down the straight. It looks to be these tires are going to be the ones to go on, or wheel to wheel now on lap number 28. And this was a battle we were waiting for to see of the race. We thought it'd be for the lead, but it's for P2. Alex is going to go to the inside, and like we just mentioned, Alex will go in at P number 2, and now we are going to say this. Now it's just going to be moments away from when it looks to be that Big C will be under pressure from Alex is now across the line. We will see where the timestamp will be crossing the line. I think Alex has actually still gained some time. Nope, he's lost a couple tenths, but still within these next couple of laps, I do feel like he can try and push, but speaking about pushing, the fuel's on yellow, so I'm not exactly sure if he wants to push 100% to try and catch the leader. But obviously, Big C, all he needs to do is hang on and be consistent within these next 5 to 6 laps of this Grand Prix.
This is on another level of insane. Big C is leading the race by 6 seconds from Alex, and he's got just under 6 laps now to close that lead, and he will be pushing to the absolute limit. If you have the chance to win an esports race, it is going to be the biggest achievement of your league racing career, and Alex is absolutely flying. He has 6.1 seconds to close. We are on lap 23 of 28 here at the Chinese Grand Prix. Let us know your thoughts on the race so far. Let us know who you think is going to win this race using the hashtag F1 Esports on Twitter. We'll be very interested to see what you think of this race so far. The gap is down to 5.8 seconds. It's closing, but is it closing enough? That is the big question, and I don't think it is at this point. Remember, Big C has been on these intermediate tyres, I think, since the first stint. He pitted for these tyres before lap 10, and he has stayed on them for almost the entirety of this race. If he pulls this off, it will be one of the most deserved victories, one of the most incredible strategy calls the world has ever seen. I am fairly sure he's about to come round the final corner to start lap 24 of this Chinese Grand Prix. Nobody would have expected this at the start of the race.
Yes, definitely. I say now they approach the final corner. This is Alex. I'm taking on board with him across the line. Let's see what the gap is. It looks like only diminishing by 2/10. He's not gaining enough, though if he was keeping up the 1 second per lap thing, we're trying to catch up to Big C. I honestly feel like we could have seen a last lap pass like we did yesterday in the PC race where Wycom's won, but anyway, Big C is hanging on. He is pushing all he can. The difference between the two drivers is a fuel mix for Alex is yellow, meaning he can't push as much. Thing with Big C, he can push all he wants. It is in the gray. I think he saved just enough fuel till the end. We do have 5 laps remaining in this Chinese Grand Prix, and Big C, all he wants to do is just go lap by lap to the final lap. That is what he wants to do and hang on to the victory that he has right now. Though I can't say it yet, Commentator's curse still can be a thing, but obviously how the gap stands to be, looks like Alex did make up some time he lost last lap. However, Alex is still gaining, and we have just 5 laps to go in this Grand Prix, and it looks like every lap, the Williams, the white and blue car, looks to be getting even bigger on Alex's screen.
He caused a huge crash under pressure fighting for the victory in Brazil, but it looks like if he can hold it together today, he will have an unbelievable victory. He's just got to hold it together. We know his tyres are very, very old. We know he is not the fastest driver in these conditions. Neither is Alex. The gap has come down to 4.6 seconds. We thought it wasn't close. Oh, Alex has lost it onto the outside of the track. That could be very costly. I'm sure that would have been a very, very sketchy moment inside that Ferrari cockpit. He nearly lost it all in one moment there. He cannot afford to be making mistakes like that with only 4 laps to go in this race. He needs to close that 4.6 seconds. I'm sure it would have extended through that sector with that mistake. Big C is in the pits. Oh no, he's had to pit. Is Alex going to do the same? He is. They're all pitting. Everybody is into the pits. The 2 leaders are pitting. What tyres for? That is the big question. It is the Super Softs. They're back onto the dry tyres. Big C is going for Super Soft, and it's going to be a straight fight to the end between the Williams of Big C and the Ferrari of Alex. This is going to be incredible. Get your popcorn, ladies and gentlemen. You are about to witness an incredible showdown for the remainder of this race, as some people who have not pitted, Jemzoh is still on the intermediate tyres, is now in the lead of this race. It is all kicking off. And who's that on the mediums? Who is that on the mediums there? Big C.
A lapped car.
Oh, they got my hopes up a little bit there.
I thought it was Nico, but speaking of Nico, just a lap ago, he fell all the way down to 9th position before this happened, as now it looks like Jemzoh stuck by lap traffic, and Big C's going to dive it down to the inside. Not going to be enough. He will try just a couple laps, and it still looks like to be Big C has an even bigger chance of winning this Grand Prix, and Jemzoh running extremely wide, and Big C back to the lead with just a couple laps to go in this Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai. Same with Alex, though. He just passed a car, I believe, behind, and it looked like many drivers trying to figure out what tires to go on. It's chaotic with just a couple laps to go.
I cannot put into words what is going on in this race. Big C is in the lead. This is something you wouldn't have expected in a normal AOR race, let alone in an even more competitive field in the Esports Championship. Jemzoh is about to be gobbled up by Alex, and there's contact between the two of them. Alex squeezes through. What a move. That is crucial to his chances of winning this race. The gap is 3.6 seconds. He will have DRS from the cars in front. Alex has got to push like a madman to close this gap for the lead in the remaining few laps of this Grand Prix. He had DRS from Jemzoh because of the position of the detection point. What is the gap going to be to Big C? How much has he got to close in the remaining 3 laps of this Chinese Grand Prix? Big C is still in the lead, and the tyre difference has been neutralized now. They are on exactly the same compound of tyres, exactly the same distance put on them for both of them, and the gap is down to 3.2 seconds. This is going to get very, very spicy.
I believe, quote me on this, this is going to come down to the very last lap. There is a lap car between Big C and Alex. It is obviously the Red Bull driver, though, of TRL, and eventually these drivers will be close enough for fighting distance. So obviously only 3 laps to go. And I think really what Big C needs to have is TRL in between. And between that sandwich, obviously, Big C just he needs that Red Bull driver there. I think that'll be a crucial and key point to his victory if he hangs on. That is, however, the gap down to 2.7 seconds, and the gap keeps on getting smaller and smaller every lap. Laps to go. However, it still looks like they're pretty much a far distance away. I'm not going to quote anyone on this yet, but I'm putting my money on a last lap pass in this Grand Prix.
As the lap car lets Alex through in a bit of an awkward place there, actually. The gap is now down to 2.8 seconds. He can see that Williams in front of him. It is so tantalizingly close. He is powerless to do anything at the moment. He has just got to keep pushing as hard as he can in this race. Surely he cannot win this race from this position. It would be unbelievable to have another last lap pass 2 days in a row. As I think I saw a little bit of rain on the camera. I don't think it's raining again though just yet, as we're about to start the penultimate lap of this Chinese Grand Prix. What is the gap between Alex and Big C? It is still 2.8 seconds, and with exactly 2 laps remaining, Alex has a mountain to climb. He's got to close 2.8 seconds in the remaining 2 laps, and the intensity that these 2 drivers will be feeling at the moment, the pressure, they will never have felt anything like this before, fighting for the victory in an F1 esports race. The first time we've ever had esports on an F1 game, and these 2 are privileged to be fighting for the lead. The first time it has ever happened on the PS4 console. The gap has gone up to 3 seconds. Big C is holding it together so far. This is something else.
Cut out again. I'm not sure if he's talking, but however, it looks like to be Big C hanging on with just a couple laps to go. And I'm sorry if the stream keeps having me interrupt Ali. Just Discord is not working today. He keeps glitching out. I'm sorry for that, but it looks to be Big C is hanging on. The gap is now down to 3.1, so another 10th lost for Alex now, as they're on the penultimate lap headed to the final lap, as it looks like both drivers are maintaining the gap. And actually, believe it or not, Big C weaving down the straight. I think he's just on a little celebration lap before he actually wins this thing. But as we head to this final lap, this will be one of the most crucial ones. Locking up in the hairpin is Big C, like we said, the most heaviest braking point on this circuit. As it seems to be Alex doing everything he can to try and gain time back to Big C, as it looks like we approach this final lap of the Chinese Grand Prix as he goes for the fastest lap. Wow, well done. And that amazes me because he weaved down the straight and got the fastest lap. Oh, hold on a second. Big C's been disqualified. He's chosen the wrong tire, and he's out.
Oh no!
The very last lap.
Oh no, what has happened in this race? Big C has been disqualified on lap 27 from the lead of the race. What on earth have I just witnessed? Big C has been disqualified from the Chinese Grand Prix, and Alex is the leader. That would have been such a fairy tale for Big C, but out of nowhere, he's been disqualified, and I cannot see any reason why. I assume that must be something wrong with the tires. That I have never seen anything like this before, and I swear you will never see anything like this ever again. Alex is in the lead because Big C has been disqualified from a lead of 3 seconds. He has been disqualified from the Chinese Grand Prix. I imagine the stewards will have a thing or two to say about that come the end of the race. But Alex now, the leader of this race, I'm sure he was not expecting that one either. He's been gifted this position, and as he goes along the back straight, what have I just witnessed in this race? Drama at the very last, as Alex only has 2 more corners to go in this Grand Prix before he takes victory provisionally in this first race of the F1 2017 Esports Series. That is so much drama to happen on the very last lap of this race as Alex, round the final corner, he will come up to the line to provisionally win the Chinese Grand Prix. He is weaving up to the line. I imagine the stewards may have a thing or two to say about that after we see why Big C was disqualified from that race. As H Racing Green is up in 3rd place. I didn't even notice that. Harry is going to get a podium in this race, is he? In that Renault, up to the line is going to be P3 for H Racing Green. F1 Italian Magic will be in P4. While we were concentrating on the lead, all of this stuff has been happening behind. Nico is down in P6, having started on the pole. It has been a disaster for the Red Bull driver. And so many things happened at the end of that race. That was something you will never, ever, ever see again. What happened there was beyond belief. I have never seen anything like that ever, and will likely never see anything like that ever again. I cannot quite comprehend what I have just seen. Oh my days. That is... Oh my days. I have no idea why he's been disqualified, whether that will be revoked or not. I'm not sure whether that was because of potentially a glitch with the tyres or because he had too many. I highly doubt, knowing Big C, that would be corner cutting penalties. That seems a little bit odd. If he's now watching the stream, I would appreciate some clarification as to why he was disqualified, because that was... I have no words to describe what has just happened. I think I have no words. I'm afraid I have no words to describe what has just happened in that race. I imagine that disqualification may be revoked. As it depends what it was for. If it was for corner cutting penalties, obviously not, but I think that was highly unlikely. And there we have just received clarification that he was wrongly disqualified for the wrong compound of tyres. So you'll have to keep an eye on the steward's office to see whether that gets changed, and he will be given the victory in this Chinese Grand Prix. One of the best finishes we've ever seen was unjustly taken from us there, I think. We'll have to wait and see what actually happened once we receive clarification from the drivers. But that, oh my days, what have I just witnessed? That was something else.
Yes, that was very, very interesting to say the least. However, more interesting thing, props to every single driver but Shellay. I believe none of these drivers got penalties, and unless you go from 12th on down, a lot of these drivers are very, very clean, so props to them. And the heartbreak it was for the Williams driver of Big C, the very last lap, after setting the fastest lap and getting disqualified. That is just a bummer, but it seems to be, and I hate to say this, I deeply apologize at the very last lap when that happened. If you heard my phone going off, I apologize for that. I forgot to mute it before the race, so take that and note it for next race. But that was chaotic, to say the least.
I don't think chaotic quite cuts it in that race, but in all of that mayhem that happened, at the very last, it was Alex who took the victory, but I think we'll have to keep an eye on whether that actually happens come the end of the race, with Alberto in second and H Racing Green in third, with F1 Italian Magic in fourth, and Ollie D up in 5th place. But yes, as I said, I would keep an eye on the steward's office for that one, I would imagine. And there we go. We have confirmation, actually. Sorry to interrupt you there. We have confirmation from Dan Hawkins on Discord. We will be calling it from the last lap. So Big C's win will count. Big C has just won that race. I think you'll have to wait until the steward's office to get that officially confirmed. But I think for now you can all go to sleep knowing that Big C has won that race.
Yes, again, like I said, the heartbreak that it must have felt for Big C crossing the line to the final lap, knowing he was disqualified. He all that weight is now taken off his shoulder. That now he knows that he's just won this race. So very, very deserving and interesting Grand Prix to say the least. And I think I felt like the races get better and better as we go through the week. As I'm gonna say this, rate the race down below in the comments or on Twitter using the hashtag F1 Esports on Twitter. Just rate the race and in general, who the driver of the day you believe was, and leave it to Ali to finish this one out.
Thank you all very much for joining us this evening. Thank you very much to Alan for joining me. Make sure you all come back next week and the week after. We have races Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday on all 3 platforms across Xbox, PC and PS4. Once again, thank you all very much for watching. Thank you very much for putting on with our commentary this evening, and we will see you next Thursday. Goodbye.